Hello everybody, it's Jim from Sprague Woodturning and welcome to this week's video. So this is something that I have never worked with, and this is Banksia Pods, hopefully I'm saying that right, and they come to us all the way from Australia. Tim Mills sent these along. Thanks again for sending these along, Tim. I really appreciate it. Now he actually stabilized these before he sent these to me, so that's awesome. And I've just been kind of waiting to figure out exactly what I want to do with these. Uh, they're not very large, so I just wasn't really sure what direction I should go with it. And then I decided that, I would maybe like to make a vase or something like that. So again, thanks Tim for sending those along. What you're seeing there is a center finder, and it's got raised ridges, and you bolt it to your tabletop, and then you just hammer on the top of it and you find center. So if you do a lot of production work, I would recommend getting one. As to where I got it, that's another question. Maybe Lee Valley or Craft Supplies USA. It's been a while. I've had it for quite some time. So what I'm doing here is I don't have a lot of these pods to work with. So I wanted to put a spacer in there so that we're not wasting resin and wasting these pods. Stoner mode release. Initially, I was thinking that I was going to be able to reuse this, but it's curved on the bottom, and I failed to notice that. So I have to cut it off in the end. But anyway, I like it because it's a tall mold, and I certainly could have used it in the future, but it wasn't to be. So for this project, we are going to use the deep cast. There's quite a bit of epoxy here, so that's certainly the choice that we should be going for. For this project, I think that I used somewhere around 3 liters of resin. So the pigments we're going to be using is Flash Wine Red. We've used this in the past, and Swamp Green. That is something I don't believe that we have actually used. I'm a fan of pearl pigments, and if you've been around for a while, you'll know that. So, that's kind of, I just find that pearl pigments really add another interest and another depth to these resin castings. So that's why I really like using them. Here, I'm just trying to pour these as evenly as I can. I really want these colors to try and stay separated. In the end, it doesn't go exactly that way, but whatever we're left with is actually pretty nice as well. So no real complaints there at all. So, if I had to guess, I think there's probably something like 3.5 liters in here. I did have some concerns about the pods floating, but because they were stabilized, thanks Tim for that again, they didn't. So that was perfect. So this is 3 days later. I don't know where the footage went from me taking this out of the mold, but anyway, it was lost. Probably my camera overheated again. Anyway, here I am using the Hercules and just trimming things up, trying to, at this point, I really didn't even truly know what I was going to do with this. But I mean, I'm really liking the look of that resin. That's so awesome. So the goal right now is to just get this trued up and stand back and have a look at it and figure out what we're going to do with this. I initially thought that, this would be a nice utensil holder, but, I get thinking about it. It's such a utility item that I don't think that it really was going to do the piece justice, really. So I decided to go with a vase shape with this piece. There was quite a large indent at the drive center where that plastic container had a real kind of, it was bumped up in the very middle. So I was worried about, potentially going through the bottom of that and then into that maple blank. I figured that I had given myself about an inch on the very base before the maple blank before we would see the maple blank from the bottom. So, it was kind of one of those things where if I had to do it again, I probably would have tapered the maple spacer that I put in there near the bottom. That way it would have given me more flexibility when it came to working on the foot area. So here I'm just going to be cutting down that maple spacer, and we're going to use that as a tenon to reverse this so that I can actually put a glue block on the bottom of this. And it's not going to be your typical glue block. I just want to put a small block on there so that I can grab it with a chuck as opposed to one of my face plates. So I've got it reversed now, and so the maple spacer tenon is now being held with the chuck. And here I'm just cleaning off the bottom, getting it ready for the glue block. There you can see quite the indent from the mold that we used. Ideally, it would be flat, and that way we're not wasting any resin or any of these pods. But in the end, it works out. At least it gives you a good center when you get done here. I was just checking for flatness, if you're curious what I'm doing there. Last little thing is just to rough it up with some 80 grit sandpaper so that the glue block that we put on here has got some really good adhesion to it. And that's hard maple too, if you're curious. So now the goal here is just to trim that down, turn yet another tenon, and that way we can reverse it and move on with coring. You'll see me using a go, no go gauge every now and then, if you're curious what that is. And that's just a quick reference for me when I'm making tenons. So that was a real-time clip. I realize that some people don't really know how fast they should be going, but really it's going to be dictated to you by your drill bits. If your drill bits are nice and sharp, then you can probably go faster than say, ones that aren't as sharp. So, as long as you're not really struggling to get through the wood, then just keep going at the pace that works for you. So this is something that I rarely do. I actually took the time and I drew out an image, said, this is kind of really what I want to make with this piece. In the end, I had to change that design because of the spacer that's in the center of this. But in the end, I think that I come up with a pretty decent looking form. And let me know in the comments what you think. But I'm overall, I'm pretty pleased with the overall shape and the look of this piece. So this is the Phoenix, and again, this comes from Hunter Tool Systems, and it's a great choice to get in those little cove areas where you just can't get the Hercules in there or the Osprey for that matter. It's got a much smaller cutter on it, so that will enable you to get in there and get that material out of there. Here you'll see me switch back to the Hercules, and that's just because it's got a larger cutter. So, I kind of treat the Hercules like a roughing tool a lot of times. So, the Phoenix has a small cutter on it. So if you got a lot of material to move, then the Hercules is certainly going to be your number one choice. And I'll remind people again that in the description down below, there is discount codes to Hunter Tool Systems, Designer Epoxy, sandpaper.ca, and of course Starbond Adhesives. All your discount codes are in the description down below. So if you need some stuff, just head down there and you can get some discounts. Now this piece did have a large number of um, voids in it, and that's probably got to do with the fact that where the seeds, I'm assuming where the seeds would have been in these pods have now, of course, are not there. So that creates a little cavity. And of course, it doesn't matter if this is in the pressure pot or not. When you've got kind of an airlock going on there, it's probably not going to fill any of those. And there you can see them. There's just, if I had to guess, there was on the inside and the outside, there's probably about 100 of them. But I did have a plan for this, and we'll see that in a little bit. So there I am, back with the Phoenix again, and this is a relatively new tool to me, and don't have a ton of experience with it, but like I said, to get down in that cove, it does a real good job doing that. As you can see here, I've got the steady rest in place now. With this piece being that far off of the chuck and also just relying on a hot melt glue joint, I figured that I really wanted to have the steady rest in place just for some security. So I'm just using the gouge here just to try and remove as much as that maple spacer that I can before we move on with the hollowing system. All right, as you can see, I've got the steady rest in place. This is the one-way captive hollowing system. Got the teardrop cutter in and the largest straight boring bar, which we should be able to use the whole time here. All right, well, let's see how we do. It's kind of funny because I bought this hollowing rig a number of years ago, and it really didn't see a lot of use in my shop. But now that I'm doing resin and I'm able to make pieces like this, I certainly have gotten more use out of it, that's for sure. So, it's just the same thing as always. You just got to go easy with it, try to be as steady as you can when you're using it and not too aggressive so you don't get any chipping and tear out. The principles are pretty much the same when using one of these rigs as they are with pretty much any other tool that you're holding in your hands, like a gouge. You just slow and steady wins the race when it comes to this kind of stuff. Now, I initially didn't use the laser because this system does come with a laser system. You'll see me use it later on. And if you're curious, because I know that some people probably are, I sharpened this cutter 3 times during the turning of this vase. So, if that was a carbide cutter, I probably, well, probably, I wouldn't have sharpened it at all. So, that is again the difference between carbide and high speed steel. Well, all right, here's where we are. Just got a little bit of that maple blank to remove down there. Once we get all down to resin and pods, then we will make a decision on maybe making this a little thinner. I don't want to make it any thinner down here and more delicate until I know how much that blank is going to encroach on the inside of this. So once I know that, then, we can make a decision. But so far, so good. Just got about 3 inches or so down to the bottom to get rid of. Then we'll see what happens. And to give you an idea, this is another real-time clip as to the speed at which I'm hollowing this out. I know that, again, that gets lost when the footage is sped up. So this gives you an idea. And of course, I'm no different than anybody else. I do find that the very bottom of these vases and holoforms is one of the hardest things to cut cleanly, and where you don't have a big bump sticking up or an indent. So it's one of the hardest things to do. I find it is anyway. Again, you can share your thoughts on that.
All right, so here's an update. You can still see a little bit of that maple spacer in there, but it is getting super thin down there. It's probably 3/16 of an inch thick. So what we're gonna have to do is thin out the rest of this, and hopefully we'll be able to sand that out, or I'll have a look at it after this is thinned out. Big issue here is, you've got still quite a bit of wall thickness here, but quite thin down here. So worried about this breaking off, not gonna lie. Anyway, we'll just go easy at it and hopefully nothing happens.
In the end, I did have to leave a little sliver of that maple spacer in there. There was just really no way to get that out without, you know, I I probably could have risked doing it, but really, when you've got so much time and money invested in something, I always played on the safe side of the house, and that way we have something to watch this week. All right, so here I've got the laser and I'm setting it up right now, and you can see it along the outside of the vessel here. And of course, the way this system works is soon as the laser drops off the side, then you know that you've achieved the wall thickness that you've preset. Right there, the laser's gone. Ideally, you would just see a very light shadow of it on there, but you know, I even had to check with my finger because I wasn't sure if it had moved. I don't show it on the videos, but I do regularly check to make sure that none of the attachments have come loose, and that way there's not a catastrophic failure. But there's a good example of it. You can see really how long that laser is getting. So that means that you pretty much achieved the wall thickness. I think initially I started at a half inch, and from there I went down to, quarter inch, 3/16, somewhere around there. The other good thing about making a vase that's basically got, it's got a straightish wall. I was able to use the laser system. The If you remember in a previous video, I commented that I was going to alter the steady rest so that I can use the laser system all the time. I just haven't got around to doing it, but it wasn't a factor in regards to this vase anyway. Out near the top, you will see the laser disappear and then come back on, and that's just because the laser beam is actually hitting on the metal pieces of the steady rest. And anyway, that's why you see it disappearing now and then, if you're curious. So finally on the sanding, these extensions, I think you can probably get them pretty much anywhere, any tool store really. So the sanding pad itself is actually probably ground down about an inch and a half, and I'm using a 3.5 inch dimple disc on it. Now that will allow the disc to wrap around it, and you've seen me use this on all these hollow forms. The only, and I'm calling this a hollow form, but it's really not a hollow form, it's a vase. The only negative thing with it is you don't really have any feedback from the tool. So it's hard to tell where lumps and ridges are. So that's why, you have to sometimes just do it by hand, and that's what I'm doing here. Um, I'll use mechanical sanders anytime that I can because they're faster and typically will give you a better surface. But sometimes you've just got to get in there and do it by feel. And this way you can certainly feel the lumps and bumps in there and get a nice smooth finish or surface. I should have mentioned, but I sanded this piece from 60 to 320 on the inside and the outside. Uh, didn't do any final shaping with any tools. Just went straight to sanding after sanding the inside. You may notice that I do things a little differently than most wood turners. I actually concentrate on the inside, and once I know that's good, then I move to the outside and finish it too. This is the Fast Cure from Designer Epoxy, and unlike Deep Cast and the Pro Series, this is a 1-to-1 instead of a 2-to-1 mix.
All right, I've decided to go with a resin finish here. So this is the first ever resin finish for me. I have put it on the inside of urns, but never like using it as a top coat. And I anticipate that I'll have to put a number of coats on. But this thing is really, really full of bubbles. And I figured that this is probably the best way to go about it. Trying to fill all those in.
If you're wondering what happened to that foam brush, it was too big. So I cut it down, give it a little bit of a haircut. And the only knock on this brush, or I don't know if it's all foam brushes or not, but this one here left behind a bit of foam pieces on the surface. So that was a bit of a pain. Other than that, it worked okay.
I must say, I do like it. It is a very, very pretty piece, for sure. And it's done a pretty decent job filling in those voids. I suspect that this is going to take 3 coats in order to get kind of all these voids. Very, very cool. I'm just going to let that rotate for now, and then probably in 20 minutes or so it'll be firm enough that it won't need it after that. Next time I'm going to wear a glove and try to just use my fingers, because I think that's going to be better than this. All right, well, we'll see you later. See you for the second coat. All right, so it is the next day, and I made a mistake when I did this yesterday. I didn't actually take the torch and get all these bubbles off of here before it's set up. It's set up actually really quick, which is what you want because you don't want it dripping everywhere. So what I'm going to do, and I was anticipating this, not so much the bubble thing, but all these little voids that need to be filled. I'm sure that that's going to take a minimum 2 coats to do, but probably more like 3. So now I'm going to sand this back with 320 and then do another coat, and then we'll see what it looks like then.
So I didn't show it, but this this coat I actually had to strip off. The little brush that you see me using there, which is used for putting glue on, a bunch of the bristles got pulled out of it. And frustrating because by the time that I basically got the resin back off, it was starting to set up. So anyway, a lot of denatured alcohol before I could actually put on another coat finish. So yeah.
All right, so I could probably get away with 2 coats, and I wasn't even going to show this, but since this is really the first time that I'm doing a resin finish, I figured that I would cover all the coats. If you remember from yesterday, this is like, it is 100% better than what it was. There are very, very few little voids and bubbles. One of the problems is I had a repair guy show up here yesterday, and I shut the lathe off and forgot about it. So I've got just a couple of little little runs. There's a long one there. I don't even know if the camera's picking those up. So, I want to sand this back again and redo it. And then I think that, there's just the oddest little bubble here and there. And it seemed to be using my fingers yesterday to try and push that into all these little holes work better than a brush. So anyway, I'm going to do the same thing today. And hopefully we'll be able to do the bottom tomorrow. Finish this video up.
I should also state that, this fast cure, it's not meant to be used in this manner. It's meant to fill in little voids in this kind of business. What I like to do though with it is, or what I did do with it was leave part A and part B above the heater in my clean room. That way it's more viscous. And the only thing is you don't really have a lot of open time with it because you've got heat in it. Ideally, the Pro Series is what you'd be using here. It's more meant to be a top coat finish like this. But I don't have a rotisserie, and if you use the Pro Series, and of course you probably have to have it rotating for hours before it tacks up enough where it's not going to run. So that's why I use the Fast Cure.
That's it. We'll let that rotate for about 20 minutes and we'll get it in the clean room where there's heat so it'll cure up. All right, so it's Thursday, so I gotta call this. I gotta get it done. The resin has gone down over the jaws, and as you can see, I'm trying to get it out now, but it keeps breaking off pieces of resin. I think that we're still going to be okay. I'll have to go back a little bit here, but I have to make sure in the future that when I do this again that I'll clean this off because this has now become a problem. So I'm just going to try and chip it out very lightly with my old chisel.
Another way probably around this would have been to use the drill with 60 grit on it and turn the lathe on and then just kind of grind away on top of the jaws. But this worked out in the end. It was a little touch and go, but it worked.
Whew. Some chip out right there. That's probably going to be fine anyway. I could also make this a little smaller. I might do that too. Anyway, let's get it reversed and we'll figure that out. The surface isn't perfect, but like I said, I've got to call it because I'm running out of time here.
This is a piece of maple that I've used before, and I just wanted to true it up before putting the vase on it so that it wasn't wobbling all over the place. And actually did a pretty good job. A couple of little pieces of router matting, and got it to run pretty true. And so, there's some danger here. Just trying to go, I'm leaving enough material there to make sure that this thing isn't going to come flying off the lathe. But anyway, you're kind of flirting with disaster the smaller that little piece of maple gets. And so, you've got a lot of time and money invested in it. So the last thing you want to do is have this thing come off the lathe at this point. So just light cuts and hopefully everything go all right. Since my air-powered sander is smaller than my drill, that's why I used it to finish the bottom here. Then I just used my hacksaw to cut off the rest of that little maple piece. Here I'm using my engraver, and I've done this on 2 other pieces now, and I actually like it. It does a pretty good job. I Ideally, if it was all resin, it would give you a more even look, but regardless, it still worked pretty decently. So after the engraving, there's kind of little bits sticking up, so that's why I just want to take some 320 to knock it down and then clean it out. Now, what I want to do is take some of this silver black pigment and just push it into the engraved areas. And then again with some fast cure, just using my finger just to push it all in there and then wipe it clean. And then the hope is that the black writing that's in the engraving will be left behind.
Well, you know, it was worth a try. I mean, you can see it. It's definitely there if you're looking for it. I think what I may do is I might just throw just a coat of finish on it, just to seal that all up. But that'll have to wait till after. I I didn't want to use any color than black because I was worried if I used white, I'd be worried about it getting all down in here and then just really not looking good. But it's there. All right. That noise in the background is my tractor running because I got to go move snow. See you after that. All right, it's Thursday night, so I'm cutting it close here. Totally awesome project. I think it was flash wine red and swamp green is what the pigments were. And I really like how the pigments kind of flow around these pods. Banksia Pods, I think. Anyway, thanks again, Tim, for sending those along. Anyway, it's a very unique piece. Kind of looks like pine cones a little bit. Inside, I did pour some clear resin on the very bottom, just to make it kind of flattish on the inside. Again, there's the base, and I believe once a shiny finish goes on the bottom of this, it will, you'll see that signature better. Anyway, I'm not real happy with this. I want to redo it, and what I will probably use is a foam brush this time just to try and get rid of some of these ridges. Maybe using your hand like this orientation may prevent that from happening, but as soon as you pull your finger along, it kind of builds a ridge in behind it. Anyway, regardless, the fast cure, you know, it's not designed as a top coat finish. But you know, hey, I think that I'm not far away from figuring that out. The Pro Series would certainly be a better choice for that. The only real problem I have with resin finishes is that they take a long time to set up. So, you know, I don't have a rotisserie, or else I would put this on a rotisserie and use it. But you know, if it's on your lathe, it'll tie your lathe up for hours and you can't do anything else. I did put a box over top of this as it was setting up, so that wasn't an issue as far as getting, you know, stuff falling on it. But you know, sure enough, you can feel every now and then there's a little piece of something there. So you know, maybe that fell out from inside the box. You know, so it's just one of those things. So anyway, I figured by using the fast cure that it would help limit how much material, foreign matter would land in the finish. So anyway, what I will do is I'm going to just, like I said, I'm just going to redo the outside, and I will post pictures on my Instagram account about that. And same thing on the bottom, get a look at that when it's all done. Anyway, you know, I think that this is a very cool project. First true vase that we've done on the channel here. And I really, really like how the resin kind of flows around all these pods. Very, very cool. Piece ended up being 5.5 inches across and 7 inches tall. So, you know, the Pro Series is the top coat resin that I think Designer Epoxy recommends using. But, you know, I just had to try this. Like I said, I think we're pretty close. All right, well, that's it. Let me know in the comments what you think about this week's project. And of course, that's where we're going to get the next winner of the 40,000 subscriber giveaway bowl. We're going to pick from the comments. So please leave a comment down below. And of course, that thumbs up will always help with the analytics as well. All right, well, that's it. I don't know what we're doing next week. It's late and all I can think about is getting this done. So anyway, come on back next week and hopefully it'll be something cool. Till then, take care, stay safe, don't forget that bell, and we'll see you next week.